Hello, good afternoon. This is the Piano Its Perspectives is a program of the School of Music and Performing Arts, Digital Department and Provost of Culture of the Federal University of Goiás, Universidad del Atlántico, Colombia, and the Mississippi State University, with support from the Foundation for Science and Technology of Portugal, Center for Studies in Sociology and Musical Aesthetics of the New University of Lisbon, Center for Brazilian Studies, Radio Universitária, and Radio Brasil Central FM. Besides me, Pablo Lisboa, Rosângela Yazbek Seba, and Yamira Rodrigues Nunes are part of the program's team. Thanks so much to all of you for the audience. The interview today will be Dr. Rosângela Seba, Head of the Piano Department, Mississippi State University. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is Rosângela Seba. I'm very thankful that Dr. Cremaschi has accepted our invitation. So thank you very much. And I would like to speak a little bit about Dr. Cremaschi. He is a professor of piano at the University of Colorado at Boulder, where he teaches piano pedagogy and applied piano and directs the Colorado University Youth Piano Program and coordinates the class piano area. He's also director for research advancement for the Francis Clark Center for Keyboard Pedagogy. He's right now in charge of the Hidden Voices, which is piano music by Black women composers. So welcome to the Piano in Its Perspectives.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks.
Well, as the beginning, as always, I always ask my guests, how did you start learning piano or learning music in general? Because I know you are from Argentina.
Right. Yeah, I'm from Mendoza, Argentina. And I started, my grandmother was a pianist, and she had a beautiful piano at home. And I was always fascinated by the piano whenever we visited her. I went straight to the piano and started learning some tunes. She taught me some tunes. And then I started my formal lessons, let's say. Actually, I was pretty old by American standards. I was 12 when I started my formal lessons in Mendoza with a teacher. Her name was Edith Peinado. And she taught me for a few years. I went and did an exam to start studying at the preparatory department at the university there in Mendoza. And then I switched to another teacher who is still alive, Dora De Marinis, Argentinian pianist, well known because she has basically taught many pianists in the western region of Argentina, where I'm from, and also a wonderful researcher on Argentinian music. So I studied there. I did my undergraduate degree at the Universidad de Cuyo in Mendoza. And then in 1991, I decided to come to the United States. I met another wonderful Argentine pianist, a very good friend of mine called Nancy Roldan, who lives in Maryland at the moment. And she was teaching at the university there in Maryland, and I wanted to study with her. So I came to Baltimore and studied with her for a couple of years, and then I went to Minnesota for my doctoral degree there. And then I got my first job in Ohio, and then this is my second job. I've been here in Colorado since 2004, so almost 20 years.
Wow. So when you were hired at Colorado, were you specifically to be teaching piano pedagogy, piano classes, piano lessons? Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. My first job at Ohio University, a beautiful place, actually. It's a smaller university, but the vibe was just wonderful. The people there, I still have friends there. I was teaching mostly class piano there, and also group piano pedagogy, and also some lessons. I actually brought some pianists from Argentina to study with me in Ohio, and to do masters there. And then when I came here, I was hired to do mostly piano pedagogy, group piano, but also applied lessons. So all three. I always like doing many different types of things. I don't like being like in one box. You can see if you read my resume that I'm always doing things that are very different from each other.
But that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So I'm also from Brazil, and we have this idea in South America, at least when I was there, that we are trained to be pianists, right? And so we teach piano, but we are trained to be pianists. In America, there's so many ramifications of the piano life. You can be a pedagogue, you can be a piano teach lessons. As you said, there are so many other things that we can do. So tell me more about this transition from what happened to you, transitioning from becoming a performer and then becoming a teacher, and now doing all sorts of things that you are doing. One of them, which I think is a very important work, which is bringing to life the music of African-American women composer. So explain a little bit more how all came about.
Yeah, it is very interesting. And I love what you just said, Rosangela. I completely agree. I think the perspective when I was in Mendoza in Argentina was that I was starting to be a performer, and there wasn't many other options other than that in Argentina. And I think when I came to study in the US, that kind of opened my mind to pedagogy. I discovered that I loved teaching and, started doing more and more. So gradually, as a TA, as a teaching assistant in pedagogy, I had to teach group piano. And I discovered I was actually good at it without having actually ever learned to do it. I kind of had an instinct for that. And I really enjoyed working with beginner pianists and adults. And so that was wonderful. So, and this opportunity opened up in Ohio, and they also were looking for someone who could do technology. And I've always liked computers. So that means that I had also that aspect that some of my piano friends in Argentina or even like in Minnesota didn't have. And so that kind of gave me an advantage because I was able to make computers do things. And so that was a very good thing. And so I stayed there in Ohio for 6 years and started also teaching children in Ohio and started being more and more interested in pedagogy. If you had asked me 10 years earlier, let's say in the 1980s when I was in Mendoza, that I would end up teaching pedagogy, I would have said, well, you're just making it up because I'm learning to be a performer basically. But then I discovered that there's so many other things that are worth exploring.
So the idea of group piano is also new, I think, in Latin America. We teach piano lessons, and usually we have this idea that the child has to start when they are between 6 and 8, 9 years old. So explain to some in other countries, the idea of group piano is also foreign. So explain to our audience, what is a group piano and what is the purpose of group piano?
Right. Yeah, that is a great question. And, I know firsthand, I was an Argentinian student in the US. And when they told me that they taught piano in groups, I was like, are you sure? What are you talking about? Is this a theory class, or how do you teach piano to a group? And, it's done in small groups, and it's kind of a very efficient way to teaching beginners, especially adult beginners, but also children. And so you have the groups are, at least here in CU, up to 12 students per group. And we teach those in special laboratories, in special settings. So we have digital pianos. The pianos have headphones. They have a way to interconnect them so you can talk to students without bothering the others, or you can listen to students individually. You can even create groups of students where they play for each other. And there are a lot of other specific tools that you can use to project, for example, video cameras, or to project the notes that you're playing. So that requires a different mindset for teaching, because when you teach one-on-one, you often teach in what I call reactive way. So the students play for you. Let's say you're doing a private lesson with a child. The student will play, and then you react to that, and you correct that, and you show them, okay, this is the right way, try it again. When you teach groups, you often have to be proactive. So meaning that you have to think, you have to, the more you do it, the better you become. You have to anticipate the kinds of challenges that the students will encounter. And then you have to design activities around those challenges. So you catch the challenges before they happen, okay? And of course, there's always reactive teaching, because the students will play eventually, and you have to react based on that. But the planning that you have to do is very different. When you teach privately, you could simply, I tell my students that you should plan your lessons, but you can wing them. You can improvise if you will. I see this a lot, where your student comes through the door and you're not sure what they're going to play, and then you just work with whatever they bring. When you teach groups, you are the boss, basically. You have to decide what they're going to be playing, and you have to decide activities to help them learn in efficient ways. So that's one of the things about group piano. The other thing is that there's opportunities for students to work with each other, and that is so valuable. I've heard this very often. There's no better way to learn than to teach what you're trying to learn to someone, okay?
Yes.
Because then you get to apply what you're trying to learn. So you're learning to finger a C major scale, and you have to work with your neighbor who's also learning the same thing. So you together have to figure it out, and you have to you see the errors that they make, and that makes you aware of errors you could make. And so it's a very helpful way, let's say, very efficient. And pedagogically, it's very efficient.
I think also it has to be with the mindset that socially in the United States, anything in group is very successful. And I must say that in Brazil, it's not always this way. That we believe that individual efforts, it's a little bit more efficient than group efforts, because there are so many different opinions, and people don't work very well together. And I must be something social or socioeconomic or cultural in a way. But I agree with you. They learn faster, and
Right.
because they're helping each other. Now,
And
another thing that you mentioned.
it's other things that go beyond learning to play a piece. You teach skills, basically, also.
That's correct. Another thing that you mentioned is that you are computer, can I say savvy, or computer, you know how to use the computers, and you have a love for computer coding. And you are right now helping you have your own company, right? It's called the Tenuto Web. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah. And let me just give you a little background. My father was a computer. He did business with computers, so he sold computers, and so I had computers around since I was little, and I kind of developed a fascination for them. I started as a double major in Argentina in computer science, but then piano took over. Piano required a lot more time, and I loved it, so I decided, well, I'm just going to do piano. But I kept doing computers kind of as a hobby, let's say. When I want to try something different at home, I do coding. It's like creating something, but in a very different way. It's not like composing music. It's very different. But I love the idea of solving problems. So that gives me the opportunity to solve problems. So I've been doing that for a while, and then I started working with the Colorado Music Teacher Association. I was president of CSMTA in 2012 to 2014, and they needed a new website, and they needed a system so that they could make registrations for our festivals and our competitions more efficient. So I thought, well, I'm going to sit down and solve that problem. And I created an online system that allowed people to register, to pay online. And then it allowed the basically the chairs to create a schedule and to generate certificates, judge sheets, and everything you need to run a competition, basically. And so I was, I had a lot of fun doing it. I did it for free because it was for this association I'm part of. But then some other associations in the United States, starting with Kansas and then some others, heard about it and thought, well, we could use something like that. So I decided to create Tenuto Web, which offers mostly registration and scheduling systems for music teacher associations. So I'm working with Pennsylvania, Delaware, Massachusetts, Alabama, Kansas, Hawaii. So there's a bunch, South Dakota, and there's a bunch of states that are using my system to run their state festivals. So yeah, that keeps me busy. It gives me a little bit of income, and it just makes, it's another challenge. It keeps my brain busy, if you will.
It's good to know because I'm in charge of the Mississippi.
Oh, great.
And then we always face the same problems. How are we going to make this work? And yeah, wonderful to know about that.
Yeah, it's a great system. I'm very proud of it. It makes running the competition a lot easier. So let's talk about it. I'll be glad to
it's very difficult. Yeah, because I do the state of Mississippi. I not only do my district, but I'm the VP for pre-college evaluations, and just to distribute the information to all the regional. That's quite a lot, and do the certificates and do the scheduling. Yeah,
right.
It's nice to know that.
Yeah, the system also has a messaging system, so you can send the schedules automatically to everybody, to all the teachers and the students. So yeah.
Wow, that will avoid a lot of emails. That's good.
Right.
Well, and again, I had mentioned this before, but you are responsible for the Hidden Voices, which is a project from University of Colorado Boulder. It's Walker Hall collection. Am I correct in saying that?
Right.
Which contains music of Black women composers. Right. And I will ask Andrea to put the website so people can visualize this. And could you talk more about what the project is? Because this is something that right now it's the main topic of a lot of our conferences is diversity, inclusion, and equity, and trying to bring to life and to sound composers that were for hundreds of years neglected or hidden, as you said. So tell us more about this project.
Sure. Yeah. And first, a little bit of background. The Walker Hill collection, it's a collection in the American Music Research Center, which is hosted in the library at CU Boulder at the University of Colorado. That collection was put together by a musicologist starting in the 1980s. She collected thousands of pieces by Black women composers, mostly from the US, but also from different parts of the world. And so that collection is not just piano music. There's a lot of other types of music, lots of songs and things like that. That collection is in the archives here. There's a lot of interest nowadays about that. We have people who come to Boulder to study that collection. So 5 or 6 years ago, I heard about this collection. I was not familiar with it. And I also heard about a grant that the university has that allows me to pay to basically work with undergraduate researchers for different projects. And I thought, well, it would be wonderful to maybe put together a project where undergraduates can explore the collection, write short pedagogical articles, level those pieces, then record videos of their performances, and make this available to everyone. So I've been doing this, working with undergraduates, or also some grad students, since I think it was the first year was probably 2018, I believe. And so I think we have now about 100 articles, maybe a little less than that. And those articles have leveling information. Some of them also contain videos that have been recorded by the undergrads. And the goal is to make these pieces, just let people know about these pieces. And since Black Lives Matter, since the pandemic, a lot more people are looking for these kinds of music, as you said. And so I've had good feedback from people who found the articles useful and who heard about new composers and so forth. So it's an ongoing project. I don't perform the music myself, but I work with undergraduates to create those videos and to create those articles. And you can see there, I think, you can see that those are some of the videos there. And I hope to continue doing that. The collection is very large, so we still have a lot of music to be recorded.
Wonderful. Well, in fact, I have one student right now in undergrad that he's presenting, and he had presented at MTNA. They did William Grant Still works, pedagogical works, which is a Mississippian African-American composer. But he's also very interested in African-American composers in general. In fact, his Florence Price is one of them, Betty King Jackson in college, Taylor also. So how can we, or can this be possible between universities as well?
Right. I mean, the grant only allows me to pay undergrads at CU, but the idea of the site is that to focus specifically on this collection, on the Walker Hill collection. But this collection is open to everyone. In fact, if you find music, you can actually request a PDF from the library. And if you need any help, you can email me and I can put you in touch with the librarian who works with the collection. And the idea is that the student, what I was mostly interested in is, I could just sit down with this music and record it myself, but that's not the point. I really wanted to involve students to learn this music and to perform it. And the students have gotten really excited about this. The MTNA chapter here at CU has done presentations nationally at MTNA, and also regional presentations for teachers, teacher groups or the state conference here. And all of this started because they discovered the music there. And so, the idea is to kind of encourage this kind of exploration from the students.
Do you have any idea how long it took for this collection to be together? How long it took?
To put together, I believe maybe 10 years. Helen Walker Hill she's not alive anymore, but she taught musicology and also piano for some years here at CU Boulder. And she gradually, by the way, she was the wife of George Walker, who's one of the best known African-American composers of the 20th century. He was a Pulitzer Prize winner. So she worked for many, many years putting this collection together. And, it's been there. And at times, people didn't know about it. But now it's becoming better known, I think.
Well, it's nice to know. It's nice to know that about this collection, because it is a subject now that people are trying to bring the composers that were not performed before. And some of them have wonderful works, and some of them are pedagogical, including that. This will be a link for the next topic that I was going to ask, because you have a YouTube channel with some very interesting works by Guastavino, Ginastera, as well as some Brazilian composers that It's funny to say that here I am Brazilian and my topic is in Brazilian music, but there were some composers that I didn't know that they had written the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I
Right.
didn't know that work, and it's an unbelievable work. So I will ask Andrea to put a video of yours performing. I think we had selected some of them, and we're going to talk about your videos and your interest in this type of literature. And I hope I can. It's going to work. Okay. Well, this is beautiful and such Wonderful performance. Thank you so much. Um,
Thank you.
Tell us more about Guastavino. He was called the Schubert of the Pampas. So tell us a little bit more about Guastavino, please.
Right. Yeah. So Carlos Guastavino was an Argentinian composer. He was born in 1912. He died in 2000. As you can tell, beautiful, amazing music. He was a great pianist. So he writes very well for the piano, and he has maybe 30 or 40 different pieces for piano. Wonderful repertoire. And most of it is published in Argentina, and it's not so difficult to get. He wrote in a very romantic style. He kind of was basically, he was not interested in avant-garde. A lot of Argentinian composers in the 50s, 60s, were writing in more modern language. He always wrote music that was inspired in some ways from with Argentine folklore. But also very, very romantic. Sounds a little Rachmaninoff, sometimes Scriabin. And I discovered him. I mean, I knew about his music when I was in Argentina, of course, but I really started playing his music when I came to the US. It's interesting. You have to go outside your country to discover these composers. My teacher in Maryland, Nancy Roldan, she knew the composer in person. She is one of the main scholars on his music. She wrote her dissertation on Guastavino. And we still collaborate with Nancy on projects. We have a nonprofit organization called SONUS, and SONUS International Music Festival, where we put programs together with guest pianists performing music by Guastavino and other Latin American composers, Argentinian composers. So twice a year in April and October, we broadcast some pre-recorded programs with this music. I sometimes record things myself. We did a live concert in Washington, D.C. last October, which was recorded, and it's all in the website, sonusinternationalmusicfestival.org. If you're interested, there's a lot of beautiful, beautiful recordings there. So yeah, it's a composer I really, really connect. I love his music. I have recorded it and I teach it. So yeah, if you're interested, let me know, because I have pretty much everything he wrote for piano. I have.
Wonderful. And he wrote for two pianos as well, right?
Right. He has this wonderful set called Tres Romances for two pianos. And, it's just a major work for the ensemble, the two piano ensemble. It's a work that lasts like 20 minutes or so. It's really substantial, 3 movements. It's been recorded by Martha Argerich and other pianists. I know that I think some Brazilian pianists as well have performed that.
Nelson Freire.
Yeah, Nelson Freire, yeah.
So let me ask you this. Sometimes one of the difficulties that pedagogues have is to find music such as Guastavino, Ginastera, or I saw Tanya Leon, but they are difficult to find for beginners to intermediate pianists, because most of the literature that we know, they are for advanced pianists. Did Guastavino write for beginner piano or intermediate pianist?
Right. I mean, he has a few pieces that are specifically one set called Mis Amigos.
Mis Amigos, yeah.
Mis Amigos is 10 pieces for young pianists. And I would say those are kind of mid-intermediate level. They are not elementary. Some of them could be considered early intermediate, but I think in general, I would maybe put them in the mid-intermediate range. And it is a little tricky to find music by Latin American composers, but I know some composers made a point of writing music for children. I mean, Lorenzo Fernandez is one of them. He has these beautiful sets. Luis Janeo in Argentina also has a couple of collections. Manuel Ponce in Mexico he has also some pieces for children, and there's more and more. One thing that I wanted to mention also is that one of the things I do, I think you said this, I work for the Francis Clark Center for Keyboard Pedagogy. It's a large nonprofit organization in the U.S. That's devoted basically to keyboard pedagogy, so piano teaching. They have a wonderful conference this summer. It's called the National Conference in Keyboard Pedagogy in Chicago, and that happens every 2 years. Now, the center has grown a lot in this last few years, and one of the things that we are starting to do is to create online courses. They're not free. I mean, you have to pay for them, but they are substantial. So I worked with a friend of mine who teaches at Texas A&M
Luis
Commerce.
Sanchez. Yeah,
Luis Sanchez, exactly. And so we worked for the last year. Put together, I think it's about 15 hours or so, a course that is kind of an overview of Latin American repertoire at the elementary and intermediate levels. So we work with contributors from different countries, including Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. We had Colombia, we had Ecuador. So different pianists who introduce pieces from their countries. So it's a wonderful resource because it contains also ways to access the music, links. Many of these pieces are by living composers. There's also some classics, and there's performances of those pieces and explanations. So it's a highly recommended resource. You can find those courses if you go to the Francis Clark Center website, which is pianoinspires.com.
I think I was part of one of them that I talked about Maria Luisa Prioli, which is a piano professor who died in 2005, I think. And she wrote a huge amount of works, pedagogical works only. That was the purpose of it. I think I was with Ricardo Pozenato,
right,
as well as another Argentinian pianist. Can't remember his name right now, but it is a very interesting. This is a very interesting organization, and I recommend that for everybody in the world that is interested in piano pedagogy, because we are sharing ideas in literature as well as composers, and even how to solve problems. And there's an interaction, like our podcast here, there's an interaction with those who are listening and those who want to ask questions. So we answer the questions live, which is it's a really well thought, and I'm very glad that you and Luis are putting this together. And I thank you for doing that, because it's a wonderful work for the pianists in general. Thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm also very, very thankful to the people who collaborated in this course. And as you mentioned, the Francis Clark Center has an archive with past presentations with people like you or Ricardo Pozenato and other pianists from around the world that also discuss this type of repertoire. So it's a wonderful.
I also would like to show another video of yours, which is the Doce Preludios Americanos, which is the Ginastera. And tell us, before we put the video, tell us a little bit more about your work with this publication, with this edition.
Sure. Yeah. And so Ginastera or Ginastera, some people call it Ginastera. The correct way is Ginastera because it's a Catalonian last name. But everybody in Argentina calls him Ginastera. I started playing when I was in Argentina. My teacher there, Dora De Marinis, put together a group of her students, and we explored. This was, we're talking about the 1980s, early 1980s, right when Ginastera died in 1982. There was an interest in his music, but in Mendoza, nobody really played this music. And so my teacher made us learn this repertoire. And I was maybe, 5 14, 15 at the time, or maybe 16. And she created a lot of opportunities for us to play this music in different venues. Anyways, so that was my first contact with his music. And I've kept playing, many of his pieces throughout the years. So back in 2015, Ginastera was born in 1916. So right before this 100 years of his birth, I was thinking, there's a lot of people doing recordings, and I was thinking maybe, be a good opportunity to create a new edition of some of his works. So I approached Carl Fischer Publishing, which is a publishing company in the US, who they originally published the 12 American Preludes by Ginastera in 1946. And I decided, I've played a lot of Ginastera, I've done presentations. So I wrote them and said, look, would you be interested in me working on a new edition of this set? This set, by the way, we were talking about pedagogical repertoire. This set is actually excellent for teaching. Especially the first 6 pieces are, they're at the late intermediate, early advanced, but they're wonderful teaching pieces. So Carl Fischer said yes. And so I was very, very excited and a little bit scared as well. So I decided that I needed to see the manuscripts. So I applied for a grant. All his music is hosted in Switzerland. He actually died in Geneva in 1982, and 82 or 83. I'm not sure if I got that right, but I ended up going to Basel and to the archives there, to the Paul Sacher archives. And I had the opportunity to look at the manuscript, the sketches that he had done of these American preludes. And the first, the first fair edition, the fair copy, they call it, it's basically a copy that you make when you send it to the publisher. And sometimes the publisher, sometimes when you send it to the, in Argentina, there's an entity called SADAIC, which is the Association of Composers and Authors. When you write a composition and you want to register it just so that you get the copyright, you have to deposit a copy of that piece in that association. So there was that copy was in the archives in Switzerland before it was published, because the piece was written in 1944. And it was published in 1946. So Ginastera has sent that fair copy to SADAIC, and he had kept the copy also himself. So I had the opportunity to see those two and to really kind of understand there were some differences between that fair copy and the one that was published by Carl Fischer in 1946. So I ended up making some changes, a few changes to the edition, and also writing a preface, a prologue that explains the background for each of the pieces. It explains how, teaching tips, teaching approaches. And I also did a recording, an audio recording of the work that if you buy the new edition, which was published in 2016, you will see that there's a link to a website that contains the recordings, my recordings of the piece.
All right. Well, let's listen to it because they are wonderful pieces, and this is a wonderful opportunity for us. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Really well played. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have a student who did Copland for piano pieces, blues, and then she did the Ginastera homage to Aaron Copland as part of it. Yeah, but anyway, it is wonderful to get to know you more and more and know all the things. And as we said, one of the ideas of this program is to show the perspective of music in general, but above all, that us pianists, we do so much more than just teach piano, right, or to perform. This is just a little part of what we do daily. You probably also have an administrative part in your job that you have to do it, although we don't learn that part in our undergrads or graduate programs, but all of a sudden you are in charge of things. You're in charge of grants, you're in charge of archives, and coordinating teaching assistants.
Wow.
So tell me more. Tell us, what do you think will be your next project?
That's a very interesting question. It's the end of the semester. I'm not thinking forward too much. I'm just counting the days until I'm done. Well, I think we're gonna continue with the Hidden Voices project. I'm also very interested in doing a little bit of outreach with that. With the undergrad students to do presentations for teacher groups here in Colorado. That's another opportunity for our students to learn. I'm just interested basically in continuing. We have plans with Sonus, I mentioned earlier, with more concerts and more recordings. We right now launched the second composition competition. So the first one, we ran it in 2021, and it's open to composers from all over the world who write in styles inspired by folk music of their countries. So we're looking forward to that. I'm hoping to perform some of that music that comes to the competition, especially the winners, and so that's going to be kind of looking ahead a little bit. You mentioned earlier a composer from Brazil,
Maria Luisa Pioli.
That composer. But also, I think maybe when we were talking before we started the broadcast about Jessica Pacheco, Brazilian pianist, friend of mine. We played four hands together, so we're also putting new programs with Brazilian music, actually. So looking at that, so that's probably going to happen next year. And collaborating here with my colleagues, it's always wonderful performing with other colleagues or doing some solo recitals. I'm really so happy here in Colorado, in Boulder, because we have a community that's very supportive. We have a series called Faculty Tuesdays, where faculty play pretty much every Tuesday of the fall and spring semester, and large audiences, very, very supportive. So continuing doing those kinds of things. But yeah, so lots of ideas. Some other ideas that
not enough time.
Floating, right. Right. Yeah.
But also, I always end, especially when I'm interviewing, I always end, because we ended up in our lives in places that we never thought about that we would be leaving. Also, we ended up doing things that we never thought about. Sometimes we plan for a certain thing, and something else comes, and it is as rewarding as what you were planning or thinking it would be rewarding. What is your advice for a young musician? And I'm now not saying just pianist, but a young musician in general, because
Right.
I think now you're seeing that the doors are open in different directions and for you. and for so many of us. But at the same time, I never thought I would be doing certain things that I'm doing right now. What is your advice for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think, often, um, I think young musicians sometimes have a hard time kind of imagining what they're going to do. And as you said, we often end up doing a lot of different things. So my advice would be to do, to be open to new possibilities, new explorations, to not just limit yourself to one specific repertoire, one specific thing that you want to do. Try different things, try teaching is just a wonderful thing that we do, and we also grow so much when we teach. Follow your passion, also look around. You may be in a community that has a lot of things that nobody's talking about, or just composers from different countries or different regions that nobody knows about. Try to collaborate with colleagues. Okay, one of the things that opened doors for me is networking. Friends, just doing this crazy project with friends. Suddenly, okay, well, we're gonna record all the pieces by Carlos Guastavino or all the pieces by Luis Janeo. We did that in 2000 with a friend in Germany and a former teacher who organized the whole thing. And that was actually one of my first CDs on the Naxos label, actually Marco Polo label. So, network with people, just dream together, do things with people, play with people, look for opportunities to show what you're doing to people, and don't limit yourself to, I'm only going to play Beethoven, I'm only going to play on a good piano on this hall, because that, you're not likely to do much else if you just do that. Another thing that I tell young students is that, we spend a lot of time with our instruments, right? It took many hours to get where we are, but sometimes take a few hours off that to explore other things. Get out of the practice rooms, and try things. Don't always look for perfection in everything you do. Just take risks. Get out of the practice room, talk to people, and look for opportunities to make music with friends, to make music in the community. It's not just I have to be the perfect pianist who plays the most difficult works, and so forth. So that's my advice, I think.
Again, I'm glad that you accept the invitation to be here with us today, and I'm glad that I got to know you more and get to know your work as well. Is there anything else you would like us to talk about in the last 3 minutes that we have in this interview that you would like to say? We didn't talk about my work on this or that, but if so, or
Right. Well, no, we've talked a lot about a lot of different topics. I think we got pretty much covered everything that I've been doing. I just want to thank you, Rosangela. I think we've never met online or in person, even though we both were at MTNA a few weeks ago. I want to thank you for the invitation. I've had a lot of fun, and it's really an honor to participate in this series. I know that you interviewed a lot of pianists and well-known people in the field, so I really want to thank you for inviting me. If anything, just as a way of parting words here is to, especially for those of you who are in the US, but also abroad, is to connect with resources like the Francis Clark Center. I want to invite everyone to actually look at that website to try to attend the conference this summer. We've worked really, really hard. I work with the research committee, with presentations from that basically address current research. But the conference is very large. There are some wonderful performers at the conference, wonderful teaching demonstrations. It's really a great opportunity also to meet people, to connect to others in the field. So.
And NCKP is offering also online as well as face-to-face conference. So I think the online will reach out to those who cannot travel or are abroad. As well as I noticed that this year they are going to offer a performance, right, of works that are less known, that they would like to make it available as well. And it's a great opportunity for students as well to present. MTNA and NCKP are very important conferences for pianists, especially pianists. So I really appreciate everything you've done and you are doing for the piano world. And thank you so much for believing in the music of Latin America, because it's my passion as well. I really appreciate you making things available for others. And I would like to thank the audience for being here today, and thank Andrea for having us. And I wish you all a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Alejandro, and thank you, Dr. Seba. Thank you very much. Amazing interview. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Thank you all for the audience. The Piano in its Perspectives is a program of the School of Music and Performing Arts, Digital Department and Provost of Culture of the Federal University of Goiás, Universidad del Atlántico, Colombia, and the Mississippi State University, with support from the Foundation for Science and Technology of Portugal, Center for the Studies in Sociology and Musical Aesthetics of the University of Lisbon, Center for Brazilian Studies, Radio Universitária, and Radio Brasil Central FM. Besides me, Pablo Lisboa, Rosângela Seba, and Yamira Rodrigues Nunes are part of the program's team. Our proposal is to bring to all those interested issues related to the importance of music and its role in society. Thank you very much. See you next week.